We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost. If you want to support the home for the college football sickos with a donation, help us keep the lights on. Hit that $sign where you make your comment, and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Excuse me. Welcome on into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. It is Wednesday. "10 days away. 10 days away from Farmageddon. People are starting, the Cyclones and the Wildcats are starting to arrive in Dublin, Ireland. We are only 10 days away. We are about about 6 days away from making our week 0 predictions against the spread. So you Einsteins in the PATC family, you better get ready. You better get ready because you know who you're going against. You know who you are going against this year. Greg the Gold. Greg the Gold. So buckle up, brace for impact. 10 days away. We did an episode earlier today. Episode 452. If you did not watch it, shame on you. Absolutely shame on you. The Kansas Jayhawks game changer. $300 million. As we like to say at Peek Around the Corner. I've had people ask me all the time, why do you say dollar in the way you say dollar? Dollar. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows why I do what I do? The $300 million gift to the Kansas Athletics. Holy smokes. We are going to go over a little bit of that again during our live show. But if you missed our episode 452, go check it out. Going to go through an article. John Wilner, the Mercury News. John Wilner, the Mercury News. Today. I agree with most of it. If not all of it. But most of it. Most of it. But the message, I know, everyone's going, oh, Greg, not again. Oh, Greg, not again, don't do it again, don't do it again, don't do it again. Greg, don't do it again. Don't get up on your soapbox. Don't get up on your high horse. With your weight, that horse is going to collapse. Do not climb up on that horse. Do not go into a rant. I'm not going to go into a rant. I'm not. I'm not going to battle the Einsteins in the PATC family. I'm not going to go to battle with you guys today. At least I don't think so. However, I agree with John Wilner. Let's not get it twisted. The impact to college football for the future as the result of the negotiations on the college football playoff format is going to be, it is going to be impacted heavily. Heavily. And no. What goes on with the negotiations of the college football playoffs is within the College Football Playoff LLC. It's the SEC and the Big Ten. And then they got it, it's best to get buy-in from the ACC and the Big 12. And of course, even the G6 conferences. This is separate bucket than when we're talking about the governance, the new D1 governance. Completely different, separate buckets of power, of decision making. So what is going on with the college football playoff negotiations? The end result of those negotiations, the impact it will have on football, it's mighty. Think about it. It's so important. That's why there's so much consternation around it. I think people have lost a little bit of that focus. Yeah, we all kind of disagree. We all want this sort of model, or they're doing over there that variation. You all know what I want. We finally got what I wanted. Last year's playoff is great, perfect. But it's not going to stay at 12 teams. It's not going to stay at 12 teams. It won't. It won't stay at 12 teams. And the biggest reason that it won't stay at 12 teams is further consolidation in college sports. That's why it won't stay at 12. It's not going to stay at 12 teams because the Southeastern Conference is not going to stay at 16 teams. The playoffs are not going to stay at 12 teams because the Big Ten is not going to stay at 18 teams. The college football playoffs is not going to stay at 12 teams because the Big 12 ain't going to stay at 16. There's going to be a reimagined ACC. We're not staying at 12. The impact on what the college football playoffs format is going to look like is going to be mighty on college football. Yeah, there are other important things out there. No question about it. Labels on the jerseys. You're starting to see all these type of advertisements on the football field. You're having clothes, apparel, NIL deals today with Tennessee. It's going to be further and further going down that road. All that is impactful. But none of it is as impactful as the college football playoff format. The timing of it. When does the playoffs actually expand to 16? Or, if the fat guy from Minnesota, if I get my way, when does the playoffs expand to 18? When does that happen? Because when it happens, that's gonna impact so many different things. The ripple effect on that decision alone is going to impact. It's going to impact the incentive, the initiative, the inertia, economically, everything when it comes to the Southeastern Conference. They're not going to be able to internally politically expand the conference. Don't get me wrong, there are presidents in that conference that want to expand the conference for reasons we've gone over. But politically, it would be almost impossible to expand the conference when you're sitting at a 12-team college football playoffs. So the question of when does it happen? And then how, what does it look like when it happens? So we don't lose that focus. Now, I know we're all arguing over what it should look like. But whatever it looks like, wow. The impact is going to be dramatic. So we are going to go over that. The John Wilner article. Now, this is a Wednesday. My Wednesday shows usually are a little bit shorter, a little bit lighter than the other 6 days of the week because I get quite busy in the evening hours. Have my responsibilities, and they are rather Wednesday evenings become mighty difficult. So we are going to do the best we can, go as long as we can here on August 13th. We are 10 days away. 10 days away. Kerry Gold knows. Greg, I have to make a change to what I said about my nose. It's come to my attention. The O-line hasn't had a chance to gel, and they probably won't get gel until game 3 or 4. Hearing this, I'll be happy with 7 or 8 wins this year. Thank you, Kerry Goldnose, for the super chat. Thank you so very much for your generosity. Starting us off here on a Wednesday, August 13. that offensive line stuff, that is the most difficult part to prognosticate. The most difficult part to predict. Last year's Gophers offensive line, that was the worst offensive line for the vaunted Gophers rushing attack than we have seen in the Fleck years. And nobody still knows why that is. We had all these experienced offensive linemen who played 1 million snaps. They all coming back next year. I mean, this, on paper, the Gophers were supposed to be pretty damn good with the running attack. They were not. It was shocking. Thank God Max Brosmere played quarterback for the Gophers for 1 year, or the Gophers would have won 3 games last year. Honestly. That's how bad the running game, I don't know why. So the offensive line is like, the Florida State Seminoles offensive line could be a whole lot better, in game 2 than people are expecting. Thank you, Kerry Goldnose. I appreciate the super chat. I still look. I have not made it a secret. I have not made it a secret. I got the Seminoles covering this game. I know everybody. Great. Did you hear what Tony White said? Did you hear what Tony White said about the Seminoles defense? Some of the guys are half bleeping it, and we got to get out. Come on, guys, come on. That's Tony White, baby. That's Tony White. He's gonna have that. The Seminoles on defense, they might get beat physically. Right? They might get beat because the offense might be sputtering. But the Seminoles defense is not going to get beat, at least not too often, because they're lined up wrong. They don't know what is going on. They don't know the defensive coverage. They did not know what to play. They're not on the same page. They're not working hard. None of that is going to be a reality in Tallahassee. Not under Tony White. I'm going to have the Seminoles covering this game. I can't wait for this game. The over-under is 50.5, and there is this could be a very low-scoring game. If there is not that scoop touchdown, if there is not a pick six, if there is not a shortening of the field because of turnovers, this could be a very low-scoring game. I think Ty Simpson is going to get all wrapped up. So, again, we shall see. We have not made our official predictions yet, but I am leaning heavily. Give me the 13.5. Give me the 13.5. Thank you, Kerry Goldnose. I appreciate the generosity so very much. So very much. So that's our show. And then we're going to open up for the phone lines. You can let it rip on anything you want to talk about when it comes to college football. Again, we are 10 days away, and I can't wait. We are going to be doing watch parties. We are going to be doing aftermath shows, post-game aftermath shows. We are going to have so much fun here at Peek Around the Corner. MBM is in the house. Bruce Harris is here. Mr. Dog himself, Don Scruggs, Florida man. Taytown Hawk, well. Rock Chalk, everybody. Tim Bruchamella, hello PATC. Dides 07, I'm not sure what all that means. Thanks for coming on in. Christopher Hooter is in the house. Daniel Gorby is here. Bimba 75, 79 NE 1877 is in the house. Adidas NIL just blew NIL up. I don't know about that, guys. It makes sense that a clothing apparel would pay the athletes name, image, and likeness money. And I think every school is going to have a deal like that. But it still has to be in the compensation range of what that player is worth in a true NIL market. I think the clothing apparel companies is a natural fit for these NIL deals. This is not a surprise to me. It's a big story because of the dollar figure, and of course it goes on for years and years and years. It's going to be all the athletes at Tennessee, just like everywhere else. It's a big story, but I don't think it's all. I think it's a kind of course type of story, in my opinion. Doc Boots is in the house. Oh boy, the evil Badger Jeff Olson is here. The evil Badger Jeff Olson is here. I saw your quarterback, Mr. Edwards. He's got a sleeve over his right knee. Billy Edwards, the starting quarterback of Wisconsin, went knee to knee with a fellow player in practice, and he's got a sleeve over his right leg. He looks a little, he looks a little bit unstable out there. I'm breaking down all the tape, guys. I'm breaking down all the tapes. John Famlord is in the house. Daniel Gygax is here. Hi, Dan. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. Smile Time is here. Jay Chapman. Vox Quindaro, Rock, Chalk, Flugarians, Lee, Go, Gators. Culture Provocateur is in the house. Deadeye. KS Bear Fan. Jayhawks, football, Jan. Rich Austin is in the house. Florida Man. John Wayne, the greatest American. No, I better not say that. That's a story for another day. I used to, we're not going to go there. Jose is in the house. Cousin Shane agrees that the SEC should go to 20. I like Cousin Shane. I really like listening to him. He's got a great personality, a great voice, fun guy. I don't know. I mean, should or will are probably two different questions. I think the question, I think the main question to the next expansion is big scoop or small scoop for the SEC. Do they wait to go to 20? And as we talked about this earlier today on episode 452, for Kansas, for example, Kansas would hope that the Southeastern Conference would wait. The Kansas Jayhawks would hope, if everything else was even, they would hope that the Big Ten would wait. We'll see if they get their wish. We'll see if it even matters. But yeah, I think the SEC is going to go to 20. For all the reasons I've discussed, Tough Tony is in the house. Tough Tony is here. Al Bundy is here. Bearcats is here. Pitt 9275, Go Hills. Devil Frog is in the house. You mean the person who peddled the Pac-12 propaganda when it was dying? Yeah, I the whole time I believed that John Wilner's information was incorrect because him and I were completely on the opposite ends of that spectrum. But that doesn't mean that John Wilner's thoughts and perceptions and his sources are all wrong all the time. Again, here at Peek Around the Corner, I try to do the best I can to not be in my own information silo. I keep reaching out. I keep listening to other voices. So that's how we do it here. Cal Bears is in the house. Lee 65 is here. Morris Simmons, the big gun shop. Joseph Kennedy Maynor, VP Hokie is in the house. Jimmy is here. Skaven, yes. We are coming for the $5 broken chair. Come get it, Skaven. Come on. Come and get it. Come and get it.
Aww.
But Billy is a gamer. Yeah. The season hasn't even started yet, Evil Badger Olson. Karan Shakar is in the house. Ryan Cord is here. P.S. Nitwit is in the house. Okay, I think we got everybody. AMAC, if I missed you, I apologize. In too deep. Appreciate it. Sky 12, Sky, thanks for coming on in. Okay. Let's first talk about the John Wilner article. Then we'll talk a little bit of Kansas, and then we'll get to your phone calls. John Wilner, college football playoff controversy, Ryan Day's comment, the Big Ten's proposal, and the future of non-conference scheduling. Dozens of non-conference games over the next decade could hang in the balance. It was one remark out of the thousands uttered over the course of 3 days. One man's window into reality that does not exist yet. But 3 weeks later, Ohio State coach Ryan Day's comment lingers over the fast approaching regular season that could be the last of its kind. While addressing the impasse over college football playoffs future format, Day referenced the Big Ten's controversial proposal and its potential impact on scheduling. You know that proposal: expand the CFP to 16 teams, allocate 4 AQs to the Big Ten and to the SEC, 2 AQs, Big 12, ACC, and 1 to the top-ranked champion for the remaining conferences. The other 3 slots would be granted to at-large teams. The 4-4-2-2-1-3 concept. Again, I believe that is dead. Dead. My belief, it has to go to 4-4-3-3-1-3. Dubbed the AQ model because of the lean into the automatic qualifiers, effectively allows the conference to determine how their playoff participants are selected. It creates the potential for play-in games on championship weekend and eliminates the impact of losses in non-conference games. Also, it's opposed by the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, which believe results on the field over the course of 14 weeks should determine the CFP field. If we're going to be in a situation where we get 4 automatic qualifiers, Day said last month at the Big Ten Days in Las Vegas, then I think it'd be great to have a 10th game against a Power 4 team. If we're not going to do that, then I don't think it makes sense You don't need to squint to see the emerging outline of a hostage situation. The captives? Dozens of teams in the ACC, Big 12, and the Southeastern Conference. They seem to hint that if the Big Ten doesn't get its way with the AQ plan, future non-conference matchups against the ACC, Big 12, SEC opponents would be in jeopardy. After all, the Big Ten plays a 9-game conference schedule. That 10th game, referenced by Day, would be a non-conference matchup against a Power 4 team. Matchups like the Buckeyes and the Longhorns, the Bruins and the Utes in 2 weeks. Or the Wolverines and the Sooners and the Ducks and the Cowboys in 3. It would be a different sport. A lesser sport if the Big Ten either decline to schedule future non-conference games against Power 4 opponents or cancel the ones already under contract. And there are a lot under contract. According to the website footballschedules.com, which tracks non-conference games for years to come, the Big Ten has 75 matchups scheduled over the next decade against the ACC, Big 12, Southeastern Conference, and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They range from intrastate duels, Iowa State, to intersectional showdowns, Buckeyes, Roll Tide, to the rekindling of a rivalry that was once at the center of the sport, the Cornhuskers and Sooners. Day's tone in Las Vegas was candid and thoughtful. Nothing suggested his intent to issue an ultimatum to the rest of the Power 4. But like so many other Big Ten coaches who took the podium at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center, Day was echoing sentiments expressed privately and publicly by Commissioner Tony Petitti, the architect of the controversial AQ model, which indicates conference administrators and coaches have discussed the Big Ten's non-conference scheduling strategy in a world where the AQ plan does not exist. In that world, the CFP field likely would consist of 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at-large teams, with the selection committee responsible for 68.8% of the participations. Could that happen? Are we going to a 5+11? In that world, non-conference losses would matter a great deal. In that world, Ohio State might rethink its home-and-home series against Bama in 27 and 28 and Georgia in 2030 and 31. Washington might have second thoughts about facing the Volunteers in 29 and 30. And USC, which is wary of extending its annual series against Notre Dame, might feel compelled to kiss 99 years of storied history goodbye. That said, it's not time to panic. Not yet. Negotiations over the CFP's future format are ongoing. Petitti and Greg Sankey have 3 months to reach an agreement deemed satisfactory by their competing stakeholders. And therein lies the problem. Competing stakeholders. What works for the SEC coaches and athletic directors doesn't necessarily work for the Big Ten peers, in part because of the difference in schedule models. The Big Ten won't agree to the 5+11 playoff model with at-large bids at the center of the process unless the Southeastern Conference adds a 9th conference game. Petitti believes, and rightfully so, that the Southeastern Conference existing 8-game models confers an advantage with the committee in charge of selections. But the Southeastern Conference coaches and administrators have little motivation to add the 9th game. An extra loss would narrow the path to the CFP, specifically in the postseason, generally, thereby putting performance bonuses and job security at risk. And finally, in the article, the power of the SEC brand and the influence of its media machinery is such that the conference would benefit from a selection process based largely on subjective factors. Put it another way, each conference is wholly justified in its current position. Day's comment was perhaps more instructive than alarming, a reminder that there's more riding on the CFP negotiations than the format itself. The outcome of the CFP negotiations will impact the entire sport throughout the regular season and across the years. I absolutely agree with that. It's going to affect football, what it looks like for the next 4 or 5 years, and every year beyond that, the ripple effects, holy smokes. The negotiations are ongoing. Are we heading towards a 5+7 for 2026? With no resolution, no change yet for 2027? If that is the case, okay. All right, if it's 5+7 for 2026, if there cannot be a change made that the SEC and the Big Ten agree with, by December 1st, it's going to stay the same for 2026. And that means, well, Southeastern Conference is really going to expand for 2027. If it's still 5+11, I don't think so. I do not think so. I don't think that would happen at all. Now, the Southeastern Conference does want the college football playoffs to expand. The Big Ten wants the college football playoffs to expand. So does the Big 12. So does the ACC. They want that extra playoff money. They want those on-campus football games. The coaches want it for the contracts, the bonuses. There's all the reasons for everybody, pretty much everybody, supporting a 16-team playoff. And you're going to need it for the next realignment wave to be triggered. I happen to think that 16 is still too small. I can't believe I'm saying it. I think it has to go to 18. Let's imagine, if you will. Let's just imagine. Let's pretend. Let's pretend that the Southeastern Conference wants to go to 20. Let's say they've war gamed this out and they want to go to 20. They got the reasons why. That maybe they're going to bring on another media partner. This international expansion. 20 number is a lot better than the 18 number. the student apocalypse. They want more states to become SEC states. They want to, whatever the reasons why, let's say 20 is the optimum number. From here to 2035, let's say the Southeastern Conference has decided on 20. And they believe if they go to 20, that the Big Ten will go to 20 or 22 to keep up with the market share between those two conferences. So let's imagine that's what the Southeastern Conference wants. If that's what the Southeastern Conference wants, what type of playoff format do they want? Maybe we should back engineer this thing. If the Southeastern Conference, we're pretending here. I happen to think it's true, but let's say that the Southeastern Conference has seen, they're looking at the number 20. They think there are at least 4 viable expansion candidates that will not hurt the value of the 16 current members, and there's more advantages than disadvantages for the conference to go to 20. Okay, they're at 20. What does the Southeastern Conference want the college football playoff format to look like when the SEC is at 20 teams? That's my question to you. I would suggest that they don't want a college football playoff format of 12 teams. They would want it bigger, right? What are they going to do about the Southeastern Conference scheduling if they go to 20 teams? I would suggest they're probably going to go to 9 conference games. And if they go to 9 conference games, that means they would internally have to acknowledge there's going to be more losses within the conference. But with 20 teams, 9 conference games, most likely no divisions. We'll get into that in a moment. There's still going to be imbalanced scheduling. You go ahead and look at Texas' schedule this year versus Missouri's schedule. And that's going to be cyclical, by the way. You're not going to be able to schedule, you're not going to be able to solve that issue by better scheduling. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen. So what does the Southeastern Conference want the college football playoff format to look like in a 20-team conference SEC? I don't know. I do not know. 5 plus 11, does that still work if they're at 9 conference games? Are they going to start thinking, well, we're at 20 teams, maybe we should have AQ model. Maybe we should have 5 automatic qualifiers. Maybe we should make sure that 1/4 of our conference gets in the playoffs and maybe get a 6 team in there as an at-large bid. We want to make sure to our ESPN and possibly another media partner that more of our games are meaningful when it comes to the playoffs later in the season. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. And I'm not sure if the Southeastern Conference would be interested in going into division in mod and having 4 pods. 4 pods of 5 teams. I'm guessing they wouldn't go to that, but who knows? And if they do that, they're probably going to have some sort of playing games, and And maybe, just maybe, the Southeastern Conference, if it grows to a number larger than 18, maybe eventually they start agreeing with the Big Ten Conference. Maybe it's more of, if you get as a bigger conference, you start acknowledging imbalanced schedules, 9 conference games. You don't want the committee to decide it. You want conference games to decide who gets in those play-in games to get an opportunity to go to the national tournament. I don't know. I do not know. But the college football playoff format, how it gets, when and how it gets decided, is going to have a massive impact on college football for the next 5 years and beyond. It's going to have a massive impact on the quickness, the quickening of more conference consolidation. So we shall see. We'll see if there's any big breaking news by December 1st of this year. Okay, let's get into Kansas, the Jayhawks. We talked about this in episode 352. Episode 352, if you missed it, you gotta go watch it. Pete Thamel, Kansas has received an unprecedented $300 million gift from the donor David Booth. Believed to be among the largest single gifts in the history of college athletics, KU officials tell Max Olson and me. This was this morning. Pete Thamel, this is a significant day of Kansas football, which continues to aggressively invest. Kansas plans to allocate $75 million of Booth's gifts towards the launching of the Phase 2 of its transformation of David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium and construction of the surrounding Gateway District. Though schools officials have not revealed a timetable for the construction and completion of Phase 2, the funds will allow Kansas to move forward with renovating the east side of Kansas Memorial Stadium after the 25 season, so that when the season's over, they can keep going, working on the east side. The remainder of Booth's gift will establish an annual additional revenue stream for Kansas athletics, Goff said. I'd say it's transformative and a game changer. Goff told ESPN, a game changer, a Jayhawk game changer. This gift makes an immediate impact on our top priority, football. In a profound way, football. It also provides us with an incredible revenue stream that gives us a chance to really invest in football in unique ways in the future of Kansas athletics. Kansas has already invested $450 million in the first phase of the Gateway District project, which included an overhaul of the southwest, west, north side of the stadium, plus a major renovation of Anderson Family Football Complex. Stadium construction got underway at the end of the 2023 football season and will be completed in time for the Jayhawks season opener in 10 days. In 10 days against Fresno State later this month. The second phase of the Gateway District project would also bring the development of the new hotel, outdoor event plaza, student housing, retail and restaurant spaces, and parking located east of Kansas Memorial Stadium. The total cost of Phase 2 between finishing the stadium and the mixed-use development is estimated to be $360 million. Lawrence City Commissioners voted Tuesday night to approve a package of financial and tax incentives worth around $94 million to support the project. And finally, one of life's greatest privileges of being able to give back to the people and places that gave so much to you, Booth said in a statement. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There it is, $300 million gift to Kansas athletics. Wow. Big time gift. Big time gift, and it's going to be used pretty well, I think. It's going to keep that renovation going, which is going to bring in money long term for college football for the Kansas Jayhawks. And then the remainder of that money that's not going to the renovation phase 2 is also going to be part of a continued revenue stream that's going to go into Kansas athletics, which is, of course, beyond college football. We go into more depth with my thoughts on it on episode 452. Go check it out. It's in the library of shows in our college football YouTube channel. It's obvious that Kansas got under the table deal with either the Big Ten or the SEC. I don't believe that to be true. Don't believe that to be true. Christopher Hooter, the SEC, UNC, UVA, Duke, and Kansas. I would bet against it. I would bet against it. Who knows? Maybe it's more accurate than my prediction. Mine is UNC, UVA, Clemson, and Florida State to the Southeastern Conference. I did say last year that Kansas would be a candidate for the Southeastern Conference if they went to 20 schools. So I think Kansas is on the Southeastern Conference candidates list. But they might have to go more than 20 to bring in a Kansas. Big Ten probably would have to go more than 20 to bring in a Kansas. But that doesn't mean that Kansas is not going to keep trying to improve themselves, trying to get to higher ground. A lot of money, a lot of investment. As we said on episode 452, Kansas, University of Kansas got a lot of good things going for them. They're a great university that serves their people well. They're an AAU university. They've got a market. They've got a brand. And, they've got natural rivalries that they can really... They're, they've been a Big Ten candidate for a long time. They're going to continue to be. We happen to believe, that's why we put the story out last year, that Kansas is on the SEC candidate list. I just don't think they're in because of the ACC settlement. That settlement, I don't think, was good news for Kansas when it comes to trying to be the 20th school of the SEC expansion. But you know what? I could be wrong. Kansas Kansas is going to continue to be an expansion candidate. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Vox Quindaro, Mr. Booth also issued a $75 million challenge to other KU BMDs, big money donors. D5 Terps, Kansas needs Clemson or Florida State in the Big Ten to have a shot at the Southeastern Conference. Ryan Thomas, there's not a secret deal for Kansas like Texas Tech, BYU, and other programs. They are spending money regardless to keep relevant. Yeah, I don't think there's a secret deal. By the way, I saw from Memphis Tiger fans out there, I saw who your starting quarterback is this year. Brandon Lewis, who transferred from Nevada. I think he's a 6-year player. fifth or sixth year player. He was just named the starting quarterback for the Memphis Tigers. I watched him last year against my beloved Golden Gophers. And, well, I don't know. Maybe he just had an off day. I do not have Memphis. I think Memphis is going to take a couple steps back this year. It's one of the, again, I don't want to take up too much of your time today on a Wednesday, shorter show than usual. I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but Tulane at number 12, the AAC, I think Tulane is just going to rip through the American Athletic Conference. I think they're going to absolutely rip through the AAC. And I think they're going to outpace the Boise State Broncos. One of the reasons why I got Tulane at number 12. Brandon Lewis, he looked like Nevada was shut out against the Gophers. He was. So I don't have Memphis doing much this year. Anyway, I just saw that Ryan Thomas brought up Memphis, and I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it this year. Okay, we are going to open up the phone lines. We are going to open up the phone lines. The phone lines are now open. The monologue was a little bit shorter today. It is a Wednesday. Wednesday shows are a little bit shorter. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. The phone lines is open. Talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. Go Black 45, the Southeastern Conference wants at least 3 to 4 years to settle in new members. KU is going to end up in the SEC. Rich Austin. Azon the Kid is in the house. Azon the Kid. Kansas expansion. Always the bridesmaid, not the bride. Well, I can understand, look, the history, the frustration of it all. I get it. Now, there has been programs out there. The whole Rutgers thing, the Big Ten had been talking to Rutgers since the early 90s. Rutgers was a Big Ten expansion candidate for 25 years before it finally happened. So sometimes you're the bridesmaid and finally you get the ring. The ring gets put on your finger. And Kansas is doing all they can, just like other programs. Greg, how about some Gophers propaganda? What's the Pioneer Press reporting on Christian Driver? I don't want to get it. I don't really know. Christian Driver has not been around as of late. The last Christian Driver, he's a wide receiver who transferred from Penn State. A Penn State Nittany Lion fan asked me a question about Christian Driver in the chat room last week, and I reported at the time that Driver was not in the first tier of Gopher wide receivers. He got knocked out of that first tier. I'll get back to you in a second, Tony.
Call from
Patron.
Patron, can you hold on for just one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
I've just got to answer this Gopher propaganda question. So, so I announced, he's not in that first tier. He's Logan Loya, Javon Tracy. It's going to be Brockington, who's a hell of a blocking wide receiver. And then you've got Tony, you know this now, that freshman, redshirt freshman out of Mankato, Jalen Smith. I mean, he's, by the end of the season, he'll probably be, Jalen Smith is just remember the name Jalen Smith, number 8. I mean, he's the best wide receiver in camp right now. And Drake Lindsay and him has got quite the connection. So Jalen Smith has gone way ahead of Christian Driver. You got Logan Loya. You got Trayvon Tracy. You've got Brockington. And then your 5th receiver is becoming Coy Perich. Literally, Perich is going to be the Gophers' 5th receiver, the All-American safety. The Athletic just named Coy Perich along with Caleb Downs, first-team All-Americans. They did that today. So Perich is going to be the safety who everybody knows about, who's absolutely a stud. But every practice, every time he catches another bomb by Drake Lindsay, now he's in the first tier. So Christian Driver has lost out. I don't know where he is. I will say this about Gopher propaganda, and then I'll get off the Gophers. Tony, when that Thursday night game comes around on August 28th, and we're going to be doing a watch party, there's a couple things here we got to acknowledge. The Gophers defense, I think, is going to be behind last year's, number 1. But the other thing is Drake Lindsay, the quarterback. He's going to throw some interceptions, a pick 6, and it's going to be good for him. Like, he is, in practice, he's the mad bomber. He is just gunning it. He's throwing 60, 70-yard bombs all over the place. That's the type of quarterback he is. So he's going to have to dial it back. He's going to have to get picked off. He's going to have some bad moments out there. He's going to have to get bruised up. He's that shiny penny is going to have to get roughed up. So don't panic, Tony. Don't panic. He's got so much unbelievable talent. But he's gonna screw it. He's gonna make some mistakes that we did not see last year or even under the previous Gopher quarterbacks under PJ Fleck. Patron, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Hey, no problem, man. I think Minnesota can definitely spoil some people's season this year. So good luck to the Gophers there.
Thank you.
But, hey, so, one thing I want to talk to you about, Greg, and kind of run by this idea that's been in my mind. I think one of the previous times I had called, we had talked about the concept of like the single scoop or the little scoop for the SEC, versus the double scoop, right? Or the big scoop where they take 4 teams and go to 20. And, for basically a year now, you've been, your base case has kind of been like SEC is going to take 4 teams, right? And I also thought like that's most probable, like something like North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, Clemson, right?
Yep.
So I agreed with you there. But one thing that's been, of course, kind of stood out to me is I think we had spoken about previously is that those people who are closest to Greg Sankey have been talking about only taking 2, right? Only doing the single scoop, and even Feinbaum and even Feinbaum has talked about it's about North Carolina and their travel partner, right? He's never even opened up and talked about the 4 teams. Brett McMurphy, nobody has come out and talked about 4 teams. It seems to be we have to really consider now, the evidence suggests, it's two teams. And I think some of the stuff that you had reported, like Clemson and Virginia, thinking that they have a better shot in the Big Ten, right, certainly suggests that there's more credibility or more credence to the single scoop or the small scoop than meets the eye, right? And so, I was thinking to myself, like, doing the war gaming or simulation or whatever, just in my mind, thinking, okay, what possibly is the scenario that's going to allow the SEC to go with 2 instead of 4? So I was going to kind of run that by you, what my thoughts were, and see what you think, see what the community thinks. And, part of this involves like challenging some of the assumptions that we may have held before, right? Sometimes when the evidence says one thing, we got to revisit what we think and, break out the information silo, all that kind of stuff you talk about, right? Mm-hmm. So this is my thinking, right? Like, and I'm going to say now, like, single scoop in this case would be North Carolina Duke, right? I think the first sort of assumption or presumption maybe is that, you talked about when North Carolina leaves, it's going to be a huge psychological blow to the ACC.
Yeah.
Like the implication being that it's going to be, to sort of use one of your terms, it's going to be almost like a shot in the solar plexus, right? Similar to the Pac-12, where the exodus of North Carolina and their travel partner is going to lead to a destabilization of the ACC. Like I said, similar to the Pac-12, where some members will go to the SEC/Big Ten, some may go to Big 12, and there's going to be left a couple of schools there, holding the hot potato, so to speak, right?
Yep.
They're going to be holding the bag, kind of like Oregon State, trying to, reconstruct the new version of the ACC. But what if we're wrong here? What if the SEC and in their game planning, they don't actually think that the ACC is going to collapse? Maybe, it will be a huge psychological blow, but maybe it's not actually enough to lead to a full-scale, like, destabilization of the ACC. Mm-hmm. And what if the situation is more akin to, like, the Big 12, where, the Big 12 lost its 2 top brands in Texas and Oklahoma. But one of the reasons, they didn't destabilize is, quite frankly, a lot of those schools just didn't have any other place to go, yeah. Right? Like Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, like they don't have any other options, Kansas, etc. So, you look at the ACC and you got a lot of teams there that make up a lot of the ACC that would be like that, right? Syracuse, Boston College, SMU doesn't want to go back, they don't want to go to the country club with the Big 12 folks, right? Stanford, Cal, they don't have anywhere else to really go in this case. So, what if the ACC, is stable? And one of the things that would lend credence to this in my mind, when we talk about the game planning or the, situation, war gaming is, of course, Notre Dame, right? You cannot start the, realignment talk without addressing Notre Dame. Yep. And Notre Dame, of course, is independent. But as we know, they're really like pseudo-independent, not to be disparaging, but they're kind of like a parasite in some ways. And this parasite can only live if it has a host. And that host is the ACC, right? So it's in their interest to have the ACC, be as robust as possible. And, you have reported multiple times on your show, like I guess it was Jack Swarbrick or Pete Babakwa, talking about the conditions that have to be met for Notre Dame to be independent, right? And, I think if the ACC were to remain stable, they can still be independent, right? Number one would be playoff access. North Carolina and Duke leaving the ACC would not affect their playoff access, right? Mm-hmm. Number two, they need a place for their other sports, Olympic sports, basketball, etc. Now, I think previously on your show, like, for example, Ryan Thomas, I think, had called and talked about potentially using the Big East. Mm-hmm. And you said, like, no, the Big East, they left Big East hockey and the travel and, all that kind of stuff. But in this case, if the ACC still remains, Notre Dame can still keep all their sports in the ACC, and likely, they would backfill the ACC, right? With like a UConn, with a Memphis, whoever else, right? I'm not going to speculate on the other names, but, you get the point. So then number three, of course, is the big one, right? the finances. It has to be financially viable for them. There cannot be a huge gap between Notre Dame and then the SEC Big Ten. And as you saw with that Virginia Tech presentation, yeah, there's a pretty big gap, right? Especially in the long run, certainly even in the short run, right? And I think Notre Dame, I mean, they're going to maintain independence, do whatever they can to maintain independence, because once you do join the conference, there's no more leaving, right? So they would be willing to kick the can down the road as long as possible, right? They will do whatever it takes, even if they have to propose like a Project Rudy. I mean, you see how the lengths that they will go to preserve that like pseudo independence. So, like, how would the ACC remain financially viable, if at all, in this model? Losing North Carolina Duke, well, they would still have their big brands like Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Virginia Tech, etc. I think it would have to require some type of proposal like what Dan Radakovich has talked about, like a two-tier model where you have all the branded teams playing, getting all the best primetime viewing spots, and of course getting a very regressive, like unequal distribution of revenue, right? Where like your Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame, they're going to be getting like Big Ten SEC money, or at least something close. It may not be exact, something close. Maybe your Louisville, Virginia Tech, NC State, Georgia Tech, like that, they would be getting basically like Big 12 money because they would be potential candidates for the Big 12. And then everybody else, pennies. Like your Wake Forest, your SMU, your Memphis, Syracuse, you get pennies. Like you just have to be content with having a seat at the table, right? It's going to have to be really extreme. They're going to probably have to get private equity involved. Like if they bring UConn, Memphis, they're going to tell Memphis, hey, that $200 million of FedEx money, that's going straight to Florida State, Clemson, Miami, right? Something like that, right? Like it's going to be really, really regressive. It's only a short-term solution, right? For like, again, they're kind of kicking the can down the road to the next media deal. That's like my thought of how the ACC would somehow remain stable if North Carolina Duke leave. And I was thinking again, like, why would the SEC do this, right? Especially like, when we think about the base case being the 4 team. Mm-hmm. So then I was like thinking, okay, this is what Greg Sankey would say, right? Greg Sankey is going to say, hey, look, SEC presidents, you wanted us to get North Carolina. You wanted to get in the state of North Carolina. We did it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, okay, now we have 18 teams and we can go to the 9-game conference schedule, right? And we can do all the playoff expansion and all that kind of stuff. And I think this idea was actually proposed by like Jamie Bengals girl, I think, in the chat, where, the idea is North Carolina and Duke they're not like, football heavyweights. So the strength of schedule is not going to get too much harder for the SEC, right? Like Georgia can't complain too much if their 9th game is Duke, so to speak. You get the point?
Yep. No, I get
right.
It. Yep.
Yeah. And then the third thing is, so then once you get the 9-game conference schedule, you're at 18, you're at the same size as the Big Ten. You can do Big Ten SEC scheduling agreements, right? And then I would say the third thing is, the base case which you have proposed with like North Carolina, their travel partner plus Florida State, Clemson, is based on the assumption that the ACC is going to destabilize and that the SEC is going to take Florida State in sort of a defensive move to keep the Big Ten kind of out of the state of Florida. Like, yes, they may get Miami, Fox might get Miami, Big Ten might get Miami, but they're not going to get Florida State, Miami, right? We'll still have, the SEC is still going to have 2/3 of the teams in Florida, right? But in this case, if we think about the reporting that you have reported, like multiple times you have insisted, the Big Ten is not going to make a move without Notre Dame. Like it's Notre Dame or nothing, right? You have, for example, callers like Rick, for example, always proposes, like, why doesn't Tony Petitti call this team and this team? And why don't they get on a plane and head down there right now and be more aggressive? But they're not aggressive. They are waiting for Notre Dame. And if Notre Dame's not going to join, then you don't have to worry about the Big Ten preemptively taking Florida State, Miami, Clemson, or even Virginia. That's why you can kind of leave Virginia on the table. You don't have to play defense in the state of Virginia because they're not going to move without Notre Dame. And if in this scenario, if you can sort of ensure Notre Dame's independence, then you can, it's kind of like, the way I think about it is like, you know that game Jenga, like where you pull the wooden blocks?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like that. Like the SEC's pulling out one wooden block that's UNC Duke without without the ACC completely collapsing. And now, the Big Ten cannot move forward because they're not going to move forward without Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's not going to move forward with them. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking here is like why I have kind of shifted from the 4-team scenario to a 2-team scenario with North Carolina Duke, which is something I think ESPN probably would pay for, right? If the presidents agree with it, the media partners agree with it, something simple like that. So yeah, I know I went on a spiel there. What are your thoughts on all this?
Great call. I'll take your call off air here.
Sounds good. Good.
Beautiful call. It's very interesting on the question of if it's just two. Great call. If it's just, for whatever reasons, if the Southeastern Conference has decided they're only going to take 2, what is that second school of North Carolina? Is it Duke, Virginia, Clemson? And I think there can be a great case, a case that I would not have made myself 6 months ago, but I think there is a case, a very good case that it would be North Carolina Duke. And I know a lot of people on X, a lot of people say, Duke, come on, no way, but football, blah, blah, blah. I would not have Duke as I would not put Duke as the chalk. But according to the Virginia official that told the Virginia Tech money purse, and then we got a hold of the Virginia official. They believe Virginia is ahead of Duke is ahead of Virginia. Duke is something that the SEC is interested in, but he was talking about a big scoop. Duke going with North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson in a big scoop. I would, again, just a prediction on my part. If Carolina is part of a small scoop SEC, again, this is just me. I think Virginia is ahead of Duke. I think Clemson is ahead of Duke. I would look at Carolina and North Carolina and Clemson. I've always thought, and this is nothing new because I've said this over and over again, I believe there was a door open to me. I was very fortunate that a door was open to me in early June of 2024, and that is why we did that epic live show on June 15th of 24, in which we said North Carolina, Virginia are the number 1 targets for the Southeastern Conference. In that the big major football programs, the brands of Florida State and Clemson, were not the number 1 targets for the Southeastern Conference, nor were they for the Big Ten. It turned out to be true. But I've always thought, okay, so North Carolina, Virginia is something that the SEC presidents want. It's been leaked all over the damn place. The presidents have probably leaked this, I'm speculating, just to get out of the head of the decision makers. To say, look, everybody knows that we want North Carolina and Virginia. So remember that, ESPN, whatever their motives were, it was leaked all over the place. And I always thought, well, for the Southeastern Conference to do that, for ESPN to be willing to do that, and they have to do the pro rata, but you don't want to tick off your media partner, ESPN, for a potential third party, a new partner for the Southeastern Conference. The meeting was Goldman Sachs, private equity. If you're going to expand the conference, if you're trying to get to other markets, international markets, and to grease the skids. I've been a believer that then you would have to do the big scoop to pay for the small scoop. That you would have to get your Florida State and Clemson. And I've also believed in my prediction that Florida State and Clemson would want that to happen. Sure, Florida State would take a Big Ten invitation. Clemson would take a Big Ten invitation, but everything being even, I think both of them would take a Southeastern Conference invitation ahead of a Big Ten. Even with all the problems between Florida State and ESPN and all that. So that's why I think that happens. But if, for whatever reasons, economic reasons, internal political reasons, if the SEC only goes to a small scoop, if they do the traditional adding on two schools, it's a fascinating discussion that Patron brought up, because he believes North Carolina and Duke would probably be it or could be it. And that would not upset the apple cart so much to where Notre Dame would say, okay, maybe we'll stay in the ACC. And therefore, that is playing defense against the Big Ten by only taking two schools. At that point, if the Southeastern Conference only takes a North Carolina and a Duke, the Big Ten is going to do something. And it's probably going to be very beneficial to the Big Ten Conference. And I don't think the Southeastern Conference is going to let the Big Ten do something that easy. So that's why I just think the Southeastern Conference is going to do a big scoop. But the discussion around what does the Southeastern Conference do if they only take two schools, like a Paul Feinbaum and other people like Patron said, they're never saying, oh, the SEC, these are the four schools, bop, 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 bop. The only time that a national reporter has talked about the next Southeastern Conference expansion, and they have put four schools down as a speculation, it was Pete Thamel that ranked them. North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, and Clemson, you can flip them either way. That's what I happen to believe those are the four schools in the Southeastern Conference big scoop. But no other reporter says this team, this team, this team, this team. No national reporter. So we'll see. Greg's Disney Adventure, thank you for the $2 holla. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on. I very much appreciate it. Thank you, Greg's Disney Adventure. Appreciate it. Carrie Gold knows, Azon the Kid, Greg Disney Adventures. Thank you guys for your donations to help us keep the lights on. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel and then open up those notifications. Turn those notifications on, because we can come on live at any time. We might have to come on live at 11 o'clock tonight Eastern time to cover the breaking news. Remember, we're all just sitting around here, right? We're all just sitting around. We don't know what the next, tomorrow is this next era for the Big Ten. What is it? We talked about it yesterday. What is it? What is it? Is it a new logo? Is it some sort of new Fox One? Now, that's not launched until August 21st, but is there some sort of media enhancer that's being introduced tomorrow? I don't know what this is. Bob Thompson says the rebrand. Yeah, I read that. That'd be a new logo. Part of it, anyways. It could be it. It could be it. They have not changed their branding since 2011. So we are going to be covering that news when it breaks tomorrow. So keep your head on a swivel. Again, Kerry Gold knows ESPN is wanting to get Florida State and Clemson on the cheap. That's why they're playing us down. BYU football, Kansas and North Carolina, small scoop when the ACC finally melts down. Sankey takes the big scoop. Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and Duke. Are you saying the Big Ten takes Kansas and North Carolina, BYU football? Is that what you're trying to say? Go Black 45, the Big Ten will let the SEC go first to put max pressure on Notre Dame. Larry Ellison, Skydance, Paramount Global. That is the daddy of CBS Sports. And by the way, Redbird Capital is a private equity investor in the Paramount Global part of that, I believe. Or was it the Skydance part of it? Whatever. Redbird Capital is part of all that. So they're part of all that. And they were in talks with the Big 12. We'll see what happens with that. Alrighty, since nobody else is calling in, this is going to be a short live show. Wednesday, our live shows are short. We've been on the air for almost an hour and a half. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I do appreciate it so very much. Tomorrow, we're going to get back to our full live show. Tomorrow, Thursday, August 14th. We are 10 days away, and we're getting closer and closer to having to make our picks against the spread week 0. I want to thank Kerry Gold Knowles, Azon the Kid, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Greg Disney Adventures for your donations to help us keep the lights on. Thank you for the phone calls. Thanks everybody for coming on in. And before you leave, please subscribe, turn on those notifications, smash the like button if you've liked our content. Today it was all about the Kansas Jayhawks game changer, David Booth, $300 million. And we also talked about John Wilner's article, the negotiations going on with the college football playoff format is going to be mighty impactful to the entire college football landscape in the years ahead. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, PATC, to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.